Hey guys, so May's numbers are in. Interesting things happening. So while you're outside enjoying this beautiful weather today, hang on tight. Watch the rest of this while Trace explains everything going on in the market today.
If you are looking for information on buying, selling, managing, or renting a home, we'll show you all the tips, tactics, and secrets that will best ensure your success. So let's get started. Hi guys, my name is Trace. I'm with Ashford Realty Group here in Colorado Springs. And real quick, we're going to go over the housing market and real estate market for May 2021. Now, first of all, if you're a current homeowner here in Colorado Springs, congratulations. You're going to love the information we're going to share with you here. I can't imagine that you would look at this information and not be ecstatic. Now, if you aspire to be a homeowner here in Colorado Springs, you're definitely going to want to take a look at this information as well. And even more importantly, you're going to want to look at this information just to understand and get some insight on what you may be challenged with to buy a home here in Colorado Springs. So without further ado, guys, let's get into it. And let's start with the median sales price range. So the median sales price range here in Colorado Springs is $420,000. Now, what that means is in the month of May for 2021, the average home sold was $420,000. Now, this is up actually 23.5%. This is a significant number here. Just from May of last year to May of this year, we saw a 23.5% increase. Normally, this is a single-digit number in most all markets. Now, I know the housing market across the country is seeing a little bit of increase in a lot of the markets, but I would say the 23.5%. I would say that we're probably on the top end of one of those that are climbing. So, without a crystal ball, let's try to identify some trends. And what I'm talking about here is, without the crystal ball and predicting the future and the lack of that ability, the next best thing we can do is use accurate data from the MLS and try to identify any kind of trends or anomalies, and just to get a better idea of the direction of the market. So the 12-month median sales price for that trend, guys, you can see this is pretty much just a steady grow right here. Now, we are seeing some pretty steeper climbs here in these last couple of years, and this is strictly just going to be the demand that we've seen from for Colorado Springs. The secret's out. Everybody's moving here. So with this, we had a couple bumps in October and January, it looks like, but these aren't significant enough. And of course, when you have that variable of COVID involved, these aren't very alarming to me at all. So what I'm still seeing is everything trending up. So with that, let's go to the 5-year. Now, what we want to do with the 5 years, we're looking for a broader, spectrum to consider here as far as trends or anomalies or any kind of spikes or anything. So what you're seeing here, guys, is again just a steady climb. Now, the only thing that I'm seeing as far as that I would want to pay attention to is just the significant increase we saw. Like we said, that 23.5% from last year to this year. That's a pretty significant jump. So we're seeing a large climb there. So again, these inventory issues that we've had, and we've had these well past COVID, are starting to affect and have affected our pricing here, as it does with anything, law of supply and demand. Now, COVID, though, I will say, it just exasperated that because everything froze last year. Some people are still reluctant in moving and getting out and moving, but yet the demand coming in is still strong, and even more so with all the stuff that's transpired over this past year. So that's going to be the median sales price range. Now let's get into the buzzword and the issues for Colorado Springs. And it's going to be inventory. So inventory, what we're going to look at here is we're going to be looking at the listings for May 2021, and then what's sold. And then we're going to look for, again, the trends to see if we can identify anything or any kind of anomalies or concerns. So let's go ahead and start looking at that. And we're looking at 888 homes were listed for the month of May, and yet 11, or just say 1,180 actually sold. These actually look inverted, but they're not. These are accurate. We double checked. In fact, this has been going on for the last, this I think is the third month in a row that we've seen this where they look inverted. So what could, how can you sell more than you list? Well, you got to think about, this is just what was listed in May. So if they listed, the end of April, it doesn't count as a listing, but yet the sale, average sales, period being 30 days, when you're financing, the sale would be in May. So you may have a lot of the inventory or some of the inventory from previous months being absorbed into this month. And then of course you have that little, catch where somebody may have listed in the end of May in April, but the contract was finalized or executed in May. So another possibility here is some production builders will not put in a listing because they're actually pre-selling everything. They're not even scratching dirt before they have a contract. That's just the demand that we have. And in fact, there's waiting lists with a lot of these production builders. In fact, most of those production builders at this point. So you can have some of those production builders, they won't actually list the home or put it in the MLS, but when the home does sell or contract, especially if a real estate agent was involved in that transaction, a lot of times it will show up in the listing. So you would have, or in the MLS. So you would have, a home that was not listed, but yet the sale of that home is reflected in the MLS. So let's look at trends for that, guys. And we're going to start with that 12-month trend. So the white bar graph, in the white bars in the bar graph is going to be listed, and the black being sold. You can see they pretty much stay in line. A lot of times in a normal market, you'll normally have a balanced market. You're going to have a little bit higher listings than sales. And what we had, even though that this looks like, oh, okay, wow, they were, in a normal market. No, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, we've been in the seller's market for some time now. And though we've just had more inventory in months past, doesn't mean that we weren't in a seller's market. And we'll get more into that here in a second. We'll explain how that is. But you can see these last 3 months, a significant number of sales, beyond what we had listed for that month. Again, the explanations that we touched on previously, but we did see that through this past year with COVID and everything. A lot of people were reluctant in listing and a lot of uncertainty and everything. So a lot of people held off in our area, but yet the demand coming here didn't stop. In fact, it actually increased. So it just made the inventory issue even, more of an issue or more of a problem through the COVID months there. So let's get into the 5-year trend. Again, just a broader picture. Let's take a look at it. Are we seeing anything? And here it is. You can see here's an anomaly. We've crossed to where we actually have sold more than what was listed. And, we saw that beforehand, but this is the 5-year trend. So this is just month 21, but you can see this gap in between here. Like, wow, they did have a lot more listings. Well, yes, it did offer more opportunity and more choices, probably less multiple offer situations. Still, we had multiple offers in those previous years for homes, especially in median sales price range. But even though we had more listings than sales, those months, May of 17, 18, 19, and 20, those were still sellers markets. So let's get into that. In fact, sellers market. So buyers or seller markets. I think we've probably alluded to this enough to know that, spoiler alert, it is a seller's market. And what I mean by that, how we're going to identify a seller's market is going to be month supply of inventory. And this is housing inventory. So the housing or month supply of inventory or housing inventory for us is 0.75. So this is 3 weeks, essentially. One being 1 month, 0.75 is going to be 3 weeks. Well, guys, for a seller's market, you're looking at anything at 4 months and below. So anything represented as a 4.0 and below would represent a seller's market. And of course, anything 4 to 6 is going to be a balanced market. And then 7 plus is going to be your buyer's market. So obviously, we are very much so in a seller's market with only 3 weeks of inventory. So inventory is still the buzz for Colorado Springs, guys. So guys, we have a lot of information that we're continually putting out. We have a ton of stuff in the queue that's in post and everything else right now that we're looking to get for you, so you know how to work in this market, be it a seller, be it a buyer, be it a renter, be it a property management, or somebody looking for property management services. We're looking to put all this information together so that you can have this available to you anytime you're considering something without having to go through the awkward calls and everything else. We just want to make sure you have the information. So look in the link below. We'll be adding some stuff in the descriptions and stuff that will guide you on the next steps, whatever those steps may be for you. So guys, until then, let us know how we can help, and cheers.